There's a moment, and I suspect you know it, when things fall apart. Maybe it's a phone call you weren't expecting. Maybe it's a project you've spent a year on collapsing in a single afternoon. Maybe it's just the feeling of lying awake at 3 in the morning, your mind running its familiar loops and thinking, I've got no idea how to handle this. Most of us, when that moment comes, reach for whatever's nearest. We distract, we scroll, we tell ourselves it'll look better in the morning. But there's a tradition 2,500 years old that was built specifically for that moment. Not to help you escape it, not to numb it, but to walk directly through it and come out the other side more capable, more clear and more free. That tradition is Stoicism, and this channel is your workshop for learning how to use it. Welcome to the Stoic Mind Mechanic. My name's Tim Howell and I'm going to be your guide through one of the most extraordinary intellectual and practical traditions in human history. I came to Stoicism the way most people do, not through a philosophy degree, but through difficulty. I was dealing with a cancer diagnosis and the prospect of chemotherapy and surgery, and a friend of mine handed me a copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I read the first page, then the second, and by the time I'd finished the first chapter, something had shifted. It wasn't that Marcus had solved anything, he hadn't. He was writing to himself in a private journal, probably never intending for anyone else to read it. And he was struggling with frustration, with ingratitude, with people who let him down, with his own failures to live up to his own ideals. But the way he was engaging with that struggle, the tools he was using, the framework he was applying, that was different from anything I'd encountered. I wanted to know where it came from. I wanted to understand it properly. And the further I went down that road, the more I found that Stoicism wasn't just philosophy. It was a complete practical system for living, and one that modern psychology has now independently validated in remarkable ways. This channel is the product of that journey, and I want to share it with you. So, what is Stoicism? Let me start with what it isn't, because there's a word with a lowercase s that most people reach for first, Stoic. The meaning expressionless, unmoved, stiff, the person at the funeral who doesn't cry, the soldier who never shows fear. That's not what we're talking about. Stoicism, with a capital S, is a philosophy founded in Athens around 300 BC by a thinker named Zeno of Citium. We'll spend a full episode on his extraordinary story. The short version is that he was a merchant who survived a shipwreck, lost everything and walked into a bookshop in Athens. What happened next changed the intellectual history of the Western world. Zeno began teaching in a public colonnade called the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. His followers became known as Stoics, and over the next 3 centuries the philosophy they developed became the most widely practiced philosophical tradition in the Greco-Roman world. At its heart, Stoicism rests on a single radical claim. The quality of your life is determined not by what happens to you, but by how you respond to what happens to you. Not your circumstances, not your history, not your bank balance, not your health, your reputation, or how other people treat you. The quality of your inner life, your experience of being you, depends on the quality of your judgments, your values and your choices. Now that's a bold claim, but by the time we're done, I think you'll find it's also a deeply liberating one. So you might be wondering, why is an ancient Greek philosophy relevant to someone living in the 21st century? That's a fair question. And the honest answer is because the problems Stoicism was designed to solve are precisely the problems we're drowning in now. We live in an age of extraordinary material abundance and paradoxically, extraordinary psychological fragility. Anxiety disorders are at epidemic levels. Burnout is endemic. We're more connected than any other generation in history, and yet by many measures lonelier. We have access to more information than we could consume in 1,000 lifetimes, and we feel more uncertain about what to think and how to live than perhaps ever before. The Stoics faced different versions of the same pressures. Seneca wrote about the tyranny of busyness in a letter that could have been written this morning. Marcus Aurelius, governing an empire while fighting a pandemic and wars on multiple fronts, wrote about the challenge of staying grounded when everything is in flux. Epictetus born into slavery, physically disabled and stripped of external freedom entirely, wrote the most penetrating account of inner freedom that the ancient world produced. Now, these weren't armchair philosophers, they were practitioners working in extreme conditions, field testing their ideas against some of the hardest circumstances imaginable. And then there's the scientific angle, because this channel isn't just about ancient history. One of the things that first stopped me in my tracks was discovering that cognitive behavioural therapy, the most extensively evidence-based psychological treatment in existence, was directly and explicitly inspired by Stoic philosophy. Albert Ellis, one of CBT's founders, literally read Epictetus as a student and built his therapeutic model around the same central insights. Stoicism isn't just philosophically interesting, it's empirically validated, and we're going to explore that connection in depth. So here's what we're going to build together on this channel. We're going to start at the beginning, genuinely at the beginning, with the founding of Stoicism in ancient Athens. We'll meet Zeno and the thinkers who developed his ideas into one of the ancient world's most complete philosophical systems. Then we'll follow Stoicism as it travels to Rome, where it found its most powerful and most practical expressions in the hands of three writers whose works have never gone out of print: Seneca the statesman, Epictetus the former slave, and Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who used philosophy as a private discipline, never as a public performance. And from there we'll go deep into the core principles, and I mean genuinely deep, not a listicle, not 5 tips you can screenshot. We're going to try and understand these ideas well enough to use them. The 4 cardinal virtues, the dichotomy of control, the concept of preferred indifference, what it actually means to live in accordance with nature, memento mori, amor fati, the view from above. These are all extraordinary tools, and like any tool, they're most useful when you understand not just what they are, but why they work and when to reach for each one. Then we'll bring it into the present. Modern Stoic thinkers, the research in psychology and neuroscience that's caught up with what the ancient philosophers wrote about instinctively, and practical, concrete applications across every domain of life: leadership, sport, relationships, grief, anxiety, addiction, parenting, work. And throughout, we'll be honest. We'll engage with the genuine criticisms of Stoicism. We'll look at where it can be misused, where it has blind spots, and where other traditions offer useful supplements. This is not a fan channel, it's a workshop. We take the philosophy seriously enough to examine it critically. I want to say something about the name, the Stoic mind mechanic, because it's not accidental. The Stoics themselves use exactly this kind of metaphor. Epictetus compared the mind to a citadel that must be properly maintained. Marcus compared his reason to a craftsman's tools, and Seneca spoke of philosophy as medicine for the soul. The mechanic metaphor is deliberate for a specific reason. Mechanics don't work on abstract machines, they work on real ones, specific models with specific faults in specific conditions. And a good mechanic has 2 qualities above all else. First, they understand the system, they know how it works at a deep level, not just the surface symptoms, but the underlying architecture. And second, they're practical. All that understanding is in service of one thing: get the machine working properly again. Now that's what I want this channel to be. Not philosophy as an intellectual performance, philosophy as a toolkit for the specific machine that is your mind, in the specific conditions of your life. The Stoics call the goal eudaimonia. It's often translated as happiness, but that's too thin. It means something closer to flourishing, the full, deep functioning of a human life lived in accordance with your best values. And that's what we're building towards. Marcus Aurelius wrote something I want to leave you with today. In his book Meditations, he writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Now, he wrote that almost 2,000 years ago. He was at the time the most powerful man in the world, and he was writing it to himself in a private notebook as a reminder. That's the thing about Stoicism that keeps drawing me back. The greatest practitioners were not people who had things figured out. They were people engaged in a constant, honest, and sometimes painful effort to close the gap between the person they were and the person their philosophy called them to be. That gap and the effort to close it is what this channel is all about. So before the next episode, I want you to invite you to do one thing. Tonight, before you go to sleep, ask yourself one question the Stoics considered fundamental. What did I do today that was within my control, and did I do it as well as I could? Now, don't answer it for me. Don't comment with the answer. Just sit with it and let it do its work. And in the next episode, we begin at the very beginning. The wreckage of a merchant ship on a beach in Athens and the philosophy that rose from it. Zeno of Citium's story is one of the most remarkable origin stories in intellectual history, and I can't wait to share it with you. If this felt useful, if something landed, please like and subscribe. It really does make a difference to how this channel reaches people who might need it. And if you know someone who's going through a hard time, someone who might benefit from a different set of tools, share this with them. That's what this tradition was always for. And until the next time, see you.